Part 9. It's not what you think. When writing this book, I had to go back through several years of sessions in order to present what I, James Van Praagh 86, felt were the most common types of personal encounters between loved ones and those who have crossed over the veil of death. In my research, I came across a number of readings that stood out from the rest. Perhaps they were purely unique or included miraculous demonstrations of the powers of spirit, or incredible and surprising facts were revealed during the communication. I found the following session to be an amazing example of all of the above. It is a story of a couple whose lives were shattered by the death of their son. It was a death that produced more questions than answers. Their son's spirit was very grateful to have had an opportunity to enlighten his parents about the controversial incidents surrounding his death. At the end of the session, not only was he able to restore peace of mind to his parents, but, more importantly, his soul was able to finally rest. Alan and Sandra came to me through the recommendation of friends. They seemed quite skeptical and very unsure of getting themselves involved in something as strange as spiritualism. I gave them my usual introduction, explaining how I received information, and what to expect and what not to. They listened and seemed to understand that they had to be ready for anything. The first person I picked up in the room was Sandra's mother. I spoke out, "Sandra, your mother is talking to Heaven 87 here. She is very close to you and says to be careful of that kitchen knife." "Oh, my God," replied Sandra. "I was sharpening it today and almost cut my finger." "Was she watching me?" I said. "It had to be your mother because I wasn't in your kitchen." Sandra smiled, and her mother continued sending me thoughts. "Your mother says she likes the new patio furniture." "Yes, that's right. We just bought some the other day at Sayers. She used to sit outside on the porch a lot when she lived with us. She has a great sense of humor. She says she was sitting there waiting to die." Suddenly, I was interrupted with the thoughts of another spirit who was emphatic about being heard. "Yes, I hear you," I told the spirit. "There is someone else with your mother, Sandra. It is a young man who passed over very quickly. Your mother says you've been asking for him." The couple's eyes began to well up with tears, but I went ahead. "Do you understand the name of Stephen?" They both turned pale and began to cry. They asked James Van Praagh 88 acknowledged that Stephen was their son, and the reason they came to see me. I continued, "Stephen is very agitated. He doesn't feel at rest. He has been trying to get through to you for a while." "Has he been over there about 2 years?" "No, just about 10 months, closer to a year." He says his death really destroyed you. He is so sorry about his death. He has tried to right a wrong. I don't know what he is talking about. Do you understand what he means?" Alan spoke up. "Yes, I think so. What else is he saying?" "Gee, he gives me a burning sensation. I feel like my head has been blown to bits. I'm sorry, but this is what he is giving me." "Was he shot with a gun?" "Yes, he says you found him in his bedroom." "That's right." They both wiped their eyes. "I am sorry to bring you this information, but I believe your son was on drugs, or at least experimented with them." "Yes, we found that out," said Sandra. "Your son is very strong. He is yelling." "It was Ronnie." "Who was Ronnie?" "Ronnie was a friend of his." I then transmitted information that changed the talking to Heaven 89 entire feeling in the room, not only for the couple but for myself as well. "His watch. He is talking about his gold watch." Alan said, "We couldn't find it after he died. We looked everywhere. Your son gave it to Ronnie for payment. Ronnie was angry." "Do you know if there was some kind of fight before your son died?" "No. Stephen is screaming at me, I didn't kill myself. It was Ronnie. Ronnie did it to me. I didn't kill myself." There was a dead calm silence. None of us could believe what just came through. Very rarely will a spirit come through with the name of its murderer. In this case, Stephen wanted justice. I sat back and tried to gain composure before continuing. "Stephen is saying something about suicide. Did you think he committed suicide?" They both acknowledged that they did. "Your son is trying to let you know it wasn't suicide. He wouldn't do that." "Do you know if the police questioned his death?" "No. We all thought Stephen killed himself because he was on drugs." They found drugs in his body, said Sandra. I am getting very clearly that your son and this Ronnie person were in a fight. Ronnie wanted James Van Praagh 90 some money and drugs. Alan, do you own a pistol, a small gun? Yes, that is the one he used. He tells me he got it from a bottom dresser drawer. Is this correct? Jesus, how the hell would you know that? Yeah, that's right. Do you know if this Ronnie had a prior police record? No, we don't think so, stated Sandra. Your son keeps showing me a struggle about money. Stephen owed Ronnie money. This guy was really screwed up at the time. He was very high on something. This is Ronnie I am speaking about. Listen, your son keeps showing me a garage. It is a brick garage with a wide door. It has 3 small windows. He opens it and goes to the left side wall. We don't have a garage. What does it mean? I don't know, but keep it, please. It might make sense later on. Your boy is happy that he told you about this. He says you will understand it one day. Get Ronnie. He mentions a name, Sharon or Sherry. Alan spoke up. That's his sister. Did she just have a baby? No. Well, I don't know what it means. Just keep the talking to heaven 91 information and see if it makes sense later on. Your mother is jumping in here and telling me you helped Stephen. He is all right, thank you. She is also showing me something to do with peeling potatoes. Sandra replied, yesterday, I made potato soup. It was Mom's recipe. I thought of her. She tells me it turned out well. With that, they both smiled. The session continued for a little bit longer. Stephen spoke about his funeral and how he wished his mother hadn't gone through so much trouble over his headstone. The meeting ended, and we said goodbye. The couple were convinced they made contact with their son. They told me they would listen to the tape once again and see if they could make any sense out of the incredible information. Several months later, I received a phone call from Sandra. She wanted to tell me how grateful the family was for all my help, and to inform me that several things had occurred in the interim. They called the police and spoke with a detective who knew of their son's death. The detective followed up by investigating the story about Ronnie. When he visited Ronnie's house, he found the brick garage with 3 windows. On the left side in a wall panel was a kilo of heroin, assorted drugs, James Van Praagh 92 and Stephen's gold watch. The detective took Ronnie into custody. After being questioned by the police, Ronnie finally admitted that Stephen had owed him some money for a drug deal and hadn't paid up. Stephen offered his gold watch, which Ronnie took, but Ronnie still wanted the money. The day that Ronnie came to collect it, Stephen took his father's gun out of the drawer to protect himself. When Stephen told Ronnie he didn't have the rest of the money, Ronnie grabbed the gun and shot Stephen in the head. Ronnie admitted that he was high at the time. Ronnie was brought to trial and is currently serving a life sentence in a state penitentiary. The Marine people pass from this life in a variety of ways. Some pass quietly in their sleep, others initiated themselves, and still others are involved in an accident of some kind. Although we choose our way of death long before we enter the earth plane, none seems more tragic than a violent transition. At least it seems to have the most impact on those of us still in physical form. In many cases, a person who leaves violently or quickly is unaware that the death process has taken place. Because the trauma occurs so fast, the spirit body may be literally thrown out of the physical body. The spirit may remain unaware of talking to Heaven 93 its predicament for many years to come. During that time, a spirit may visit all the familiar places of its earth life and may believe it is still alive, albeit dreaming. This spirit phenomenon is termed lost soul or, as many of us call it, a ghost. If a spirit is disturbed, unhappy, or restless, we categorize it as a poltergeist. Fortunately, many spirits on the other side are involved in rescuing these lost and misguided souls. In certain circumstances where there are bothersome spirits, there are several ways to deal with them. Remember, they only have as much strength and control as you let them. You are in charge and need to know that at all times. In the majority of poltergeist cases, a spirit does not realize it has passed over, so you begin with this idea. Also, each spirit has a different set of circumstances surrounding its death. I would advise going to the area of the house most affected by the disturbance. The time involved in removing this energy varies with each case. Before you begin, I advise you to do a ritual of personal protection and ask your spirit guides or guardian angels to be with you and assist you. This should always be done prior to any intuitive work. The first thing to do is to create an atmosphere in the house or room by raising the vibrations in that particular area. This is accomplished by playing James Van Praagh 94 spiritual or religious music such as a setting of the Our Father, or Ave Maria, or any hymn, song, or music of a high spiritual vibration. Next, purify the affected area by cleansing the atmosphere around it. Burning sage in the room accomplishes this nicely. Other scents that are equally effective are frankincense and myrrh. These three aromas are sensitive to extremely high frequencies and help to clear out dark energies. Thirdly, bring as much natural light into the area as possible. Raise the blinds and open the curtains. Finally, it is important to meditate in an attempt to reach the disturbed spirit. It does not matter if you see it or feel it. Let it know that it has passed into another dimension and tell it to ask for a parent or grandparent to guide it into the next dimension. Remind the troubled spirit over and over again that it does not need to stay on the earth side of the veil, and that indeed it will be in a much happier place on the spiritual side where it will no longer feel enslaved. Please make sure you send these thoughts to a spirit with love and compassion. Depending on the severity of the situation, a cleansing might take a few days or even weeks. There are also many situations where a person passes violently, as in the case of a murder. This spirit usually becomes aware of its predicament after a brief period of adjustment. Usually, the talking to heaven 95 spirit is met by a relative or a guide right away. The following session offers a unique perspective of a spirit as he describes the realization of his own death. Before I continue, it is important that I point out that whenever I do a reading I tell a sitter everything that comes through my mind. I have an agreement with the spirit world that if they provide me with the information, then it is appropriate for me to tell all to the individual for whom I am reading. I do this because I am just the medium. It is not my job to censor any of the given information. Besides, there might be a particular fact that the sitter might not understand if I did not tell everything. Therefore, I describe, as vividly as I am given, the visual details and scenes, including colors, and any feelings, whether joyful or uncomfortable. A young man came into my office on the recommendation of a friend. I knew nothing about this man and did not understand the immediate urge I felt from the other side. Someone was anxious to speak, and so I began. There seems to be a lot of separation from your family. Are you away from your family? I mean, do they live in another state? Yes, came the reply. Does the name Laura mean anything to you? Yes, she is my sister, she lives in Arizona. James Van Praagh 96, first don't know why, but I do want to stay within the family vibration. Are there 3 kids in the family, 2 boys and a girl? Yeah, well, there was. Yes, because I am getting a very strong sensation of a young man here. I think he is your brother. Is that right? That's who I've been thinking about. He gives me the name Mike. Does that make sense? The young man began to warm up. Yes, that's him. That's his name. He is saying he is okay. He is very happy you came here today. He wants you to tell your mom and dad he is alright. He is mentioning Texas. Texas is where my parents live. It is where we were raised. How is he doing? He is fine. He can't believe I can hear him. He's wanted to do this for so long. He has met some friends in the spirit world. From the military. His buddies. Do you understand? Yes, I do. Please, go on. Was he in Vietnam? Because he is talking very quickly about the war. The war in Vietnam. He says he has reunited with his buddies from the corps in Nam. He didn't want to go there. That's right. I was young at the time, but my mom has told me how Mike didn't want to go. Talking to Heaven 97, he seems to pass rather quickly. I felt myself falling into a deeper trance. I was being visually thrown into a world of fire and pain. I was in the middle of Vietnam. It seemed as if the world were going crazy. Bright, burning colors of yellow and orange surrounded me. In front of me I sensed a loud pop. I stared at my client and explained that I had to stop for a minute. I asked my guides to remove this death memory experience. It was affecting my physical body too much. The guides quickly took it away. The scene began to play out again, but this time I was an observer. I am being shown a man in the brush. It is very dark. The man who I believe is your brother looks quite nervous. He is walking with the rest of his troop. He tries to take off his coat, but the bottom of his coat seems to get snagged on something around his belt. The young man tried without success to hold back his tears. He could tell that I was reliving the scene of his brother's death. I saw the very top part of a grenade being ripped from its place by the zipper of the coat. The force of rushing air exploded through the soldier's body, and he was decapitated. The scene went black. I stared at my client. Did your brother get blown up by a grenade that got caught in his clothing? James Van Praagh 98. The young man slumped back into his chair. His mouth worked slowly, trying to form the correct words. Yes, that is what it said on the document sent by the government. I couldn't believe it. I had never had anyone come across so vividly. It was difficult to contain my excitement as I continued. That's amazing. Your brother is a fantastic communicator. Hold on, let's see what else he wants to say. He is describing what it felt like when he woke up. He says that after what seemed like a couple of seconds, he came back to consciousness. He looked around and noticed he felt very different, not as fatigued as he had been. He saw a group of his buddies standing in a circle screaming, but he couldn't hear their words until he moved in closer. They were screaming out his name. Mike, Mike, he answered, but they could not hear him. He walked over to the circle and noticed they were looking down at the remaining pieces of a human carcass. Suddenly, he had a very strange and eerie sensation through his body. He looked down at the dog tags his platoon buddy was holding. He saw his name on them. The young man was fascinated. That's unreal. He actually knew what was going on. He says he was a bit confused but realized he talking to Heaven 99 must be dead. He is describing a very strong sensation of peace and calmness. Hold on. He wants me to tell you he was greeted by Alice. Did he know an Alice? Alice is our grandmother. Well, Alice came to help him over. He was shocked and, at the same time, happy and relieved. He says she was standing next to him. He wants me to tell you he has seen Puppy also, and he still has Jojo with him. Puppy was my grandfather and Jojo was his German Shepherd. Mike and Jojo were always together. This is incredible. So, animals also live on. All living creatures live on. Your brother wants me to tell you how very sorry he is for causing so much worry and heartache. Please realize he is alright and living a full life. He doesn't have to worry about that. Just let him know we love him very much, and we're happy he is around us. We look forward to seeing him again one day. He says he and everyone else over there. He's laughing, including Jojo, will be waiting. When an animal comes through during a reading as in this last case, a client usually looks at me somewhat perplexed. We don't think of little Fluffy or Rover surviving death. But why not? Animals are made of the same God-given life force as James Van Praagh 100 humans. When an animal comes through, the vibration is similar to reading a human. An animal's personality traits, animals do have them come across clearly to me. Many times an animal will express how it loved a particular food or how it liked to sit on a particular chair. Like its human counterpart, an animal will on occasion describe in detail how it died, or how it had a difficult time swallowing food when it was sick, or how it was hard to walk at the end. The following is a beautiful story from a reading by an English medium who has since passed. I believe it encompasses the true meaning of how animals love us unconditionally. Once upon a time, there was a simple farmer who lived in England. As sometimes happens, hard times took away his farm, and eventually everyone in his family died. The only thing left in his life was his old, white, swayback nag horse named Patty, whom he helped bring into the world. Patty and the farmer stayed together many, many years until the day arrived when it was the horse's turn to pass. The farmer, left completely alone, was totally distraught. Years later, when it was the farmer's turn to pass, he woke up in spirit and found himself sitting in a beautiful meadow. He didn't know where he was and thought perhaps he was dreaming. He stared at a hill that talking to heaven 101 stood in the distance. Suddenly, a horse came galloping over the hill toward him. It was his old nag Patty, but she was not the old, arthritic, swayback horse he remembered. Instead, she was a brilliant, young, and vigorous mare. As the horse drew closer, the farmer indeed recognized his Patty and felt her love. It was Patty's love that guided the farmer into the spirit world. The bonds of love between ourselves and our pets live on as we journey to the other side.
Soulmate, this is a part of Zindagi Ki Roshni consultancy. It has been established for those who have lost someone and for those who are very sad in their life. About 100 PDF books and 20 short audio books of this topic will be sent to those who join it. This data will be sent to their email or WhatsApp. If you want to join this organization, then please send WhatsApp message to this number.